This is Moving Offline, but today's topic is automating offline. Simple strategies for balancing your digital and offline life. And this is a companion post to my article by the same name. On my newsletter, if you received it, and if you haven't, make sure to go and subscribe to it. I talk about simple concepts and ideas and stories that are happening or have happened in my life. And I want to talk about this one in particular because the concept of automating definitely has helped me in multiple areas of my life. The first one is finances. And I start my post by introducing the reality that at one point in time, I had a lot of debt. Maybe I didn't have the debt that a doctor or a lawyer has, but I had enough debt and I accumulated it so quickly. In a lapse of 4 years, I accumulated about $60,000 to $70,000 in debt from different sources. A lot of it, about half, was from my student loans, but a lot of the other stuff was just spending unnecessarily on technology or even eating out. I remember buying the new iPhone and other smartphones during this time period of my life, and I needed to make a change in everything from my financial perspective. I remember opening my first credit card, and I used to pay it daily in the beginning, but over time, habits definitely eat your homework. And that's something that we don't think about when it comes to our digital habits as well. So on my post, I talk about the pivot that I had to do. I had to start automating my finances in order to win. So it wasn't a conscious choice in order to save and in order to pay my debts. So I told my employer, send 3 different paychecks, quote unquote, or split my paycheck into 3 different accounts. One for spending, which was just the bare needs. One for debt repayment, which was the bigger one that I just used to pay my debt in an accelerated fashion. And then one for saving at the time. Once I got out of debt, which took me about 4 to 5 years of being super intense and super intentional, then I now have set up that same automation, but for my future, which is one for spending, my bare needs, one for investing, which is the growth. You know, a lot of people talk about investing and wanting to grow their money, but if you don't set up an automation, you're always going to have to make that choice. And when you are making that choice between spending the money now and investing it for the future, usually you're going to spend it now. And my final bucket now is for emergencies. So we have an emergency fund and we try to follow the best financial principles nowadays. But in my post, I talk about how similarly in today's digital age, we have unwittingly fallen into detrimental habits for our digital habits. I mean, smartphones have been in our world for more than a decade, and they have taught us a lot of habits. We're going into the 20th anniversary in 4 years of the iPhone. And in 20 years, we have learned a lot of stuff that is just not positive for each and every one of us. So we have to automate our digital habits in order to win and not be exploited by all of these companies. That's just my opinion. And, you may have a different opinion. So here are the 3 things that we need to talk about. The first one is the router killer. Many of you do not know this, but your router has settings. And if you go and access your settings for your router, you can set up times that it shuts off automatically, so it doesn't give you Wi-Fi. Now think about it like an outage. Many of us are not used to outages here in the United States, or if you're in a developed country, quote unquote. But in countries with limited resources, I've lived in Nicaragua, I've visited Honduras, Mexico, Costa Rica, Colombia, and I've been in different communities in the world, and I've seen that sometimes they don't have even basic resources like electricity or water. But now think of having an outage each and every day for your internet, but that you yourself want to have. So you set it up on your router settings, or you could do a physical timer outlet that automatically shuts off at a certain time, and you will not only save electricity, but you will also not have access to the internet. on a schedule. It is something like, hey, after 9 or after 10, if that's the time that you go to sleep, maybe an hour before, you want to set it up an hour before, you automatically shut off everything. So your phone disconnects from Wi-Fi, your computer disconnects from Wi-Fi, you don't have access to it anymore. And that is your signal, an automatic signal to start shutting down your day and start focusing on offline activities. You can even do it earlier. So don't say just the hour before. Maybe it's 2 or 3 hours before, but automate the time that you need to go out. Same thing, maybe even during the day if you work from home. Maybe there is a time where you just want to eat and go on a walk. Set up 30 minutes on your router on the schedule. It's usually under parental controls or, actual schedule. And you can just kill it right there for half an hour in the middle of the day, and all of your devices will disconnect. And now you don't have access to the magic of the internet, and you need to find time to do something else. Now, that's just the first one. The second one is phone automation habits. I talk about this more in my post, but essentially, having a dumb phone is the biggest automation for me, and it could be for you. But I know many of you need a smartphone for life and yada, yada, yada. And that's okay. That happens, and you shouldn't feel guilty, but you should regain control of your usage. And the first one that I want to give you is configure schedules for grayscale or use focus mode on the iOS settings. So right there, you can use the ability that your phone gives you to shut down some of these functions or maybe restrict some of the apps that you use. Another one is the Foyer method. I talk about this in my book, but very shortly. But essentially, you place your phone in a designated area, and after that, you leave it there. You can buy your own boxes or lock boxes. There's a lot of them on Amazon. And another one is the Bagby bag. You can hang it at the door, leave it there in your entrance door, and essentially you go around your house offline. So again, it's automating that service. Lastly, this one, I wish I had more time to kind of like delve into it, and maybe I'll make a full guide on my newsletter on how to use DNS services. So I personally use NextDNS, and I block everything. It's literally a tunnel through which you can control what you block, what websites you want to access, and when. So what I do is I essentially, after a certain time, usually 5 p.m., I block all access to Reddit, to Instagram, to, anything, because that's usually the time when my wife comes back home and I want to spend time with her. So around that time, I tell all of my devices through this DNS portal, I have activated it and hard-coded it into all of my devices. And essentially, I block everything except for the recreation time. So in the NextDNS portal, you're able to see a NextDNS recreation time. And I set that up for the times that I'm actually want to use the internet for those services like Instagram and everything else. At all other times, even when you have the internet connection, you're able to set up the ability to block all of that content. And this can be helpful for other websites that you may want to avoid or that you don't want in your life. And again, it's something that I personally use, and I highly, highly recommend that you acquaint yourself with the DNS services, that you set them up, hard-coded into all of your devices so that you don't have any ability, except that you go and it's cumbersome to take it off from your devices. And again, it's just a very easy way to automate blocking the ability to access different websites. The final one is just kind of like a calendar. Use a calendar to schedule evenings at maybe your local performance art center, or maybe you sign up for a class for crafts or, different things. Essentially, it's just an idea that the more offline activities you set up on your schedule, the more you automate offline into your life. And that can help you become a better person and also enjoy the things that you actually want to do. Check out the full write-up on my newsletter. And if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe as well, or send it to a friend that may be able to find these ideas helpful. Thank you for listening today to this podcast, and I hope it was helpful. See you the next time.